do the work, but also to support each other. So thank you for that. Okay, so we're going to jump into the deck. We're starting a little bit late. I'll stay as long as we need until the next meeting. I think the system has a lot of strengths. Okay, when I was taking this position, I was assessing a lot of things: the accessibility, the affordability, the commitment of the faculty and the staff across our campuses, the administration, the history and pride on each campus. And the history and pride of the campuses, I take that very seriously, again, from my CUNY experience, having 26 campuses within the system, but all of them very different and unique in a lot of ways. I would say the same thing about UConn. I say the same thing here, right? All of our campuses are different. And I think the history and pride of each campus is a real strength. Our students are awesome. I look forward to meeting with many of your students today. I've met several of them during my previous visits to campus since I started. So, very impressive and, just great group. And I think, who we're here to serve and why we're here to serve them is very clear. Next slide. So challenges. We have a young system, right? The system's only 10 years old, which when you compare that to the SUNYs, the CUNYs, the Cal States, the systems that are in different states right now, I mean, we're a very, very young system. There's going to be a lot of growing pains. There's going to be a lot of change still, and I think that is certainly a challenge. I don't have to tell you that relationships and morale are in a bad place right now. We have to work on that. I have to work on that. The system office has to work on that. We have to work on that together, right? A big part of why I wanted to make sure that I got all the visits in, got as many face-to-face meetings as possible, is because I want you all to start, frankly, getting used to me a little bit, and getting to learn about me and know me, and for me to do the same with you all as individuals, but also as groups of faculty and staff. But we got to work on the relationships and the morale. They're in a bad place right now. I think one of the challenges that we're going to have is also in our academic programs and the total value proposition of our campuses and the systems. The 21st century has changed so fast, right? Things are changing so quickly. Are our programs aligned with the needs of the 21st century, right? What we used to do, does it still work today? Is it what students are looking for? Is it what our industries and our society are looking for? So we have to continue to look at that. We're going to go into some data here: finances, resources, enrollment, the money we get from the state, some of our academic KPIs, the outcomes. And I mentioned best college rankings here, and I'll just tell you this is a personal pet peeve of mine. Like, we have to watch these things, right? We're administrators, we're bureaucrats. We got to see what's going on with these rankings from U.S. News, World Report, Forbes, Wall Street Journal has them now. All of these rankings are based on a formula of some kind, and I'll just tell you that from my experience at UConn, 1 year we dropped, I think, 3 or 4 spots, and it had nothing to do with academics. It had everything to do with fundraising. We didn't raise a certain amount of money in that year, and thus our ranking went down, right? Had nothing to do with academics. All that said, I look at the rankings this year, and I see many institutions, and I'll bet you some of you do the same thing. You look at those rankings, and you see other schools, and you know those schools. You know some of the folks that work at those schools, and you say to yourself, I know my school is a superior experience to this institution, right? So why aren't we ranked higher? I think this is something that the system office can work with all of our institutions to try to rise, because they're important. Students look at them, parents look at them, legislators. These rankings say something about us. I don't think they say what they should say about us, because I think we do a lot more and a lot better than what our rankings currently show. And that's not a denigration or a fault of what you're all doing. I think as a system and as what can we do to help improve that? All right, let's talk about some enrollment. Before I jump into some of the hard numbers, I just want to tell you that I present this information in a spirit of kind of transparency and sharing, right? So that we're all on the same page, hopefully, right? I would argue that the numbers that we're going to look at together paint a picture that tell us that we're facing a lot of challenges and there's a lot of work to do if we're going to fix some of the concerns and address some of the problems that I think we're having, okay? That I actually know we're having. We're not going to be able to do that if we don't work on it together, number one, and number two, if we don't actually agree together that there is a problem. So maybe we look at this information and we see it differently, maybe we don't. Okay, My hope is that I can share this information with you, we can look at it together, and if we agree there's a problem, we can ultimately start to bridge some of the choppy waters that we're experiencing and start to work on these problems together. I know folks are working incredibly hard. Okay? I know folks are passionate, they're dedicated, you're committed to your institution and your students, your colleagues, but the numbers are what they are. These are real numbers. They're the numbers that we get from iPads. They're the numbers that the feds look at, the state looks at, the legislature looks at, the system office, and the campus leaders all look at. So these are hard numbers. So I'm going to dive into them now. You can see here on the first slide, this is the enrollment for all of the CSUs, FTEs, not headcount, FTEs for all of the CSUs since 2008. In 2008, we had the financial crash, followed by the recession. By 2010, you could see that we hit our high point in enrollment. The trend is exactly the same for the community colleges, by the way, but this is only for the CSUs. By 2010, you can see that since 2010, there has been a consistent slide down since 2010. Now you can see where we are from pre-COVID to where we are now. The drops are significant. Right? You see the call-out numbers on the right. The drops are significant from 2008 to 2010 and even to pre-COVID. One thing to keep in mind is that this is not only a Connecticut problem. This is a national situation right now. Institutions like ours are facing the same challenges and are actually experiencing very similar drops. So to put that in context, this is not a Connecticut problem. This is a national problem. That said, this is our problem to fix. Okay, but I don't want us to feel like this is only happening in Connecticut. Next slide. Here you can see the numbers in a little more granular detail. So this is Southern's FTEs since 2010 compared to the system average. So you can see that the decrease since 2010 and since pre-COVID are just about in line with what the system has experienced. Southern's decreases are just about in line with what the system has experienced. About 24%. When it comes to since 2010, and about 13-14% since pre-COVID. I also want to just say really quick, sidebar, is that I hope you don't walk away from this thinking that I or anyone else thinks that we should be striving to get back to 2010 levels. I don't think that's realistic. I don't think the demographics would work in our favor for that. I just don't think that's going to be possible. So I don't want to set us up to think like we should be shooting to get back to where we were in 2010. It would be lovely if we could, okay? But I just don't think it's in the landscape right now to get there. Next slide. Graduate enrollment has also seen a decline. You can see the system average or the system decline versus the Southern. Southern's actually been pretty balanced for the most part, but still experienced a bit of a decline. Next slide. This is just a breakdown of the graduate enrollment in which programs, in which areas where we have seen changes through the years. Next slide. I'm going quickly because I want to try to get to Q&A as quickly as possible. So we all know that there's a lot of change coming right now with retirements. Right? All of our campuses are experiencing accelerated retirement applications. So we wanted to look at what our staffing levels looked like over the last few years compared to what our student drops look like. So you can see this is the system average, about 13% decrease with about 3.5% drop in faculty and about a 2% drop in staff. Next slide. This is comparing these changes from the system average in blue with Southern in orange. So you can see that the pace of student decline is about average with the system. Same thing when it comes to the decline in faculty, and that there's actually been a bit of an increase in the number of staff added to the campus versus the system average where there's been about a 2% decline. Okay, next slide. This is retention rate, first to second year retention rate. So the short story is that you had your high point with the 2008 cohort, but generally speaking, Southern's retention rate is about on average maybe a point or two behind the system average in terms of its first to second year retention rate, but basically still in line with the system average. Next slide. These are graduation rates. Again, you can see that the graduation rate compared to the other four, nothing too drastically dissimilar. you're basically in the same pattern as the other CSUs. You know, we've been trying to, I think it's going to take a more longitudinal study to actually correlate the retention rates, the first to second year retention rates, to the graduation rates. With some of the other institutions, you can see where their retention rate has a stronger correlation to the graduation rate, but I don't think that this is a large enough sample to draw a really definitive conclusion on that. But you can see where the snapshot is right now. Next slide. Okay, so this is the state appropriation only for the CSUs, the 4 CSUs since fiscal year 2007 all the way to the current fiscal year. So you can see that the line has actually gone up, but the average appropriation for the CSUs in terms of usable operating funds, let's call them, is about $151 million a year. So you can see in that darker blue line, that is what the state has given us that the CSUs can actually use, and it's been pretty level at 151 million. The increase has been in the fringe. So the state has technically invested more in the CSUs, but it has almost all gone into the rising fringe benefit costs, okay? So obviously, this is something that we are going to argue with the legislature about. We need more money to fund the CSUs. That's all there is to it. And I think that this graph shows that having level expenditures since 2007 is probably not a sustainable way to continue to increase performance. Next slide. This is, hold on one second, just a breakdown of the numbers. So again, you can see the state appropriation has gone up, again, driven predominantly by the fringe benefits. Tuition and fees have gone down, housing and food has gone down, and the federal funds, you can see an infusion. This federal funds, this does not include community colleges, obviously, and it also does not include the money that has gone directly to students from the federal relief packages. This is only for our CSU operating. You can see personnel and operating and have gone up while debt service appropriately continues to go down. All things considered, without those federal relief funds, we would be in really, really deep, hard waters right now. Okay, you can see that in fiscal 21, fiscal 22, we would be having some significant problems. Without further relief funding, with our current projections for enrollment and additional revenue, we're looking at a pretty steep hole, about $43 million deficit across all 4 CSUs. Next slide. This is a graph just to visualize where the revenues are coming and how they're kind of cut up percentage-wise. This is for Southern only. Again, it follows the system trend. It follows the system trend when it comes to the increase in the state appropriation, the decrease in the tuition revenues. Actually, your tuition revenues look like they have gone up a little bit. Okay, sorry about that. Housing has gone down a little bit, and then your federal funds have continued to be, very helpful in terms of balancing things out. Personnel and operating continues to go up. But again, without HERF, we would be looking at a pretty tough situation in these past 2 years. And as of right now, if nothing changes, we are going to be looking at about a $13 million deficit when it comes to Southern's budget at the end of fiscal 23. Next slide. Again, this is just the bar graph demonstrating where the monies are coming from, and you can see the anticipated miss in fiscal 23. Next slide. This unrestricted net is basically your reserves. Okay, so as of right now, we're at the end of fiscal 20, you had $35 million in reserves, and that is no small feat, number one, and number two, I think it's significant given where we are right now. This also does not happen without a lot of work, so credit to President Joe and his entire team for how they have continued to steward and manage the institution's finances, because this is a really important thing, and not every institution has reserves that are at this level at this time. I don't think these are, we're never comfortable when it comes to reserves, let's just say, but it's taken real work to get to this point. Next slide. Okay, what we can and can't control. We're almost done with this, and then we're going to get to conversation. So this is a kind of personal and professional philosophy approach, whatever you want to call it, and it's shaped somewhat by my experience at Lehman College when I was a tenure track faculty member, and I was working with a lot of folks who had been there for a long time. And I would hear things such as, what are we supposed to really do? with our students. You know, they come from the New York City public schools, they don't learn anything, they come in at a, you know, 6th grade reading level, 7th grade math maybe. What are we really supposed to do with them, right? Which I think is, frankly, a very defeatist, deficit lens. My response has always been, you know, well, we can't control the New York City public school system, right? A Department of English, where I come from, we can't control that. What we can control is how we teach our students, how we go about meeting them where they are, how we adjust our pedagogy, how we adjust our curriculum so that we continue to push them to strive for appropriate high standards without spending our time and our energy on the things that we cannot control. Because ultimately, and again, this is just my personal sensibility, if we focus all of our time on things we can't control, I feel like we end up making excuses for ourselves, right? We end up giving ourselves the outs for why our students don't get to a certain level. I'm not saying that those aren't significant challenges. I'm just saying in terms of how we approach our work, this is a sensibility that I use. So the things that we can't control obviously affect and influence what we do. But what we cannot control, birth rate patterns, demographics, decreasing high school graduate population, the changing workforce, societal needs, the gig economy, the pandemic, variants of the COVID virus, we can't control these things. We can't control shutdowns. We can't control lockdowns. We can't control travel, travel bans. And honestly, we can't. I just read something this morning. Folks are being enticed. Folks who have retired in certain industries are being enticed with tens of thousands of dollars of bonuses to come back to work, right? Worker shortages. These are the things that, again, have an impact on what happens with us here in higher education, but we can't necessarily control them. We can't control the number of institutions of higher education here in the state of Connecticut. Connecticut is 3.6 million people with a shrinking high school graduation population. But we have 15 privates, we have 5 UConn campuses that admit undergraduates, and we also have our own 17 institutions. If you include religious institutions, military institutions, and small fine arts schools, you're talking about 45 approximately institutions of higher education in the state of Connecticut. That's a lot for a small state. I think that has an impact on us, especially when many of those privates have tuition elasticity and assets in their toolbox that we don't have to try to recruit and ultimately retain students. That is all an impact on us, but we cannot control it. What we can control is our value proposition, what we do with students in the classroom, how we do that, the kind of programs we offer, the innovation in those programs and in our curriculum and in our pedagogy, how we go about supporting those students, how we go about allocating our resources on our campuses. We control all those things. We're going to be meeting later with your foundation. The fundraising, we have control over that to some degree. Our partnerships, how we work with folks in the community, how we work with folks in industry, how we work with the governor's office, the Office of Workforce Strategies, Governor's Workforce Council, and so forth. We control those relationships. We control the narrative there. We can actually move the needle in those spaces. Next slide. Opportunities. So even with, as I said earlier on, even with all of the daunting challenges that lie ahead of us, I still come to work really fired up every day because I think we have so much opportunity to change, to evolve, to improve, to continue to do the work that you all are doing, but to continue to grow and evolve so that we remain really valuable across the board. You know, the kind of innovation in our curriculum pedagogy, the modalities, the kind of work we can do with transfer enrollment. I've been looking at transfer enrollment from our community colleges to the CSUs. Almost every single CSU in the past 5 years has experienced about a 35 to 40% decrease in the number of transfer students that we're getting from our top 5 feeder community colleges. Your top 5 feeder community colleges from the state, from within our system, are just about the same every single year, right? Which is understandable. But the number of students coming from those top 5 colleges has gone down about 30 to 40% in the last 5 years. That is outstripping the pace of kind of deterioration that is happening naturally within the high school graduate population and so forth. So there's something going on there. I think we can make some serious inroads and improvements there. I think we can look to adapt policy. I think we look to do a lot of things and go after new students that could understand and recognize the value. I would love to investigate, and I've been talking to our CFO, Ben Barnes, about this, new models for financing within some of our institutions, even within to the program level, that would incentivize performance in terms of enrollment and other metrics, so that we can allow folks to do things, and ultimately, if there's revenue to be kept, to be reinvested, then that should stay with the program. I want to look at that so we have more of a responsibility-centered model as opposed to a centrally administered model, which is what we are currently working with right now. Next slide. Okay, we're almost done, I promise. Pillars of education. I believe very much in the traditional pillars, so to speak, right? The associates, the bachelors, the masters, what we have been doing for decades. I believe in this very much. We are doing it. We will continue to do it. I think we are always going to be doing this. I think we have to continue to, and this is not for only the CSUs, this is for, I think, for all of higher education, especially at the community colleges in some ways. The industry recognized credentials. Industries are changing. The workforce is changing. The needs of society, the wants and needs of students, and frankly, their families who are helping to shape those decisions, that is changing. The industry recognized credentials are a very strong pillar for us that we can take advantage of, and I think that we can find some real traction with, and that'll help us in a variety of ways. It'll help our students, but it'll also help our campuses, because I think we can serve even more people, and I think that this is especially a targeted area for community colleges. Community support and impact, again, I can see the use of our campuses across the state. That's one of our real strengths, right? Having our locations across the state be able to be access points, to be able for our students, but of course for folks who are either looking to reskill or upskill or to engage with these opportunities. You see a bullet here. It says innovation entrepreneurship incubators. Why not us? So I don't know how you all feel about this. This is how I feel. Okay, I feel like UConn and the privates seem to somehow have unofficially stamped out the ground or the territory of innovation and entrepreneurship. You know, I don't, and I might be wrong. Okay, maybe this is just me having a chip on my shoulder. I get this feeling that we, as the CSCU system, are not looked to generate activity and frankly, to kind of reach certain goals in this space. I think that is a denigration of how we're looked at. I think that's a denigration of what we can and should be able to do. You know, many of our students come to us because we are the only possibility for them to be in higher education. So why wouldn't we want to bring them? Why couldn't we bring them the opportunity to be the innovators, right? The creators. Why shouldn't we be giving them that opportunity? What kind of message are we sending if we don't do that, right? Especially for our BIPOC community, especially for our students who might come to us. Are we only supposed to train our students to become workers? Because I would argue vehemently against that. So that, to me, again, sorry, I got a little bit of a chip on my shoulder about this. That's the kind of thing where I think we can make real inroads, real progress, and raise our value proposition, not just for our students, but for across the entire state. Equity and social justice, I know that this campus has a great deal of programming, a lot of people doing this really important work, and I think this obviously is a pillar, especially in public higher education. Next slide. Okay, this is it. So we need you. We need you in the classrooms. You're doing what you're doing. Students don't come to institutions because of presidents or vice presidents or administrators. They come to campuses because of faculty. They come to campuses because of programs. They come to campuses for the academic and the student life experience. Okay, you're on the front line. I've been on the front line. I know how important you are. I know how hard it is. I know how much students come to you for all different kinds of things. We need you to just keep doing what you're doing. We're going to try to do a better job of helping you there. We need to create those new paradigms. We need those ideas coming from you, those connections, those partnerships. This is my email address, so you don't have to go through the CSCU president dummy email, whatever it is, which gets read like once every 2 weeks, right? If you have thoughts, comments, questions, concerns, you can and should email me directly, okay? You might want to copy President Joe, you might not. Even if you do not, I'm going to tell him that we're having a back and forth. Be that as it may, I think correspondence, I think communication is really key. Okay, so let's open it up. Do we have a mic to pass around? Do we have a line? I don't know how this is organized, but I'm happy to talk about anything that you all want to talk about. How we doing on time? We're doing okay. Hello.
Hi, good morning, President Cheng. I'm Liz Keenan from the Social Work Department. Thank you so much for coming to be with us this morning. I have to say that I'm a bit flummoxed right now because I hear you saying that you need us, that you're looking for innovation, you're looking for collaborative efforts to chart a new direction moving forward. And at the same time, we have been fighting for 18 months with a contract proposal that is really proposing that we stay in our lane and that we teach classes without class limit sizes, without adequate resources to retool, to support students. And those two things are not lining up for me right now. So I'm just wondering if you can shed some light.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. That was a really hard question, and she like laced that in there beautifully, so delicately and professionally. And I really appreciate that because it's a great question, and I completely understand where you're coming from. And so look, I'm going to be very, very honest and transparent with you all. You know, as I was coming into this position, I was reading all the stuff that's in the papers, right, in the media and so on and so forth. I realized there was a lot of tension, there was a lot of conflict. You know, I'm not, again, I don't even work for the system yet, so I'm only kind of seeing what's being reported. You know, some of the stuff that was being reported definitely made me raise my, raise an eyebrow, maybe both eyebrows. Look, negotiations are hard, we know that. This is not a kind of a fun or pleasant process to go through, and negotiations can take many shapes and forms. I think we started this negotiation with proposals that started on very kind of far away, polarized positions. The hope to me would be to work towards the middle. My understanding is that, some progress has been made in this time, but I think, Liz, what you're pointing to is kind of tone and attitude. I wasn't president when this process started, but I'm certainly going to be the president when this process comes to a conclusion. So I'm going to own that, okay? I'll just tell you all that right now. I'm going to own that. I'm always going to try to work to move things in a positive direction. It doesn't always move at a very rapid pace. I've had spirited kind of back and forths with other faculty at other campuses about the how or the why or the what can we do. All I can tell you is I'm going to continue to try to move things in a certain direction. Would I have started the negotiations in this way? Probably not. All right, but it is what it is. We are where we are right now, and all I can say is that I hope you will take me at face value and my word for what it is. Coming from the faculty, having gone through the tenure and promotion process, having served in a variety of academic leadership roles, I think I understand you all very well. I think I understand why you are upset. And my goal would be to get us to a contract that treats you all well, treats you all fairly, that is sustainable for all of us. Because it doesn't behoove any of us to have a contract that is not sustainable, right? Because then we're all the numbers show it. We're barreling towards a pretty, kind of gloomy horizon right now. We have to try to avoid that. We do have to come together on that. But yeah, there's definitely a different tone, a different sense, a different attitude. I'm not so sure how to bridge that, but I'm going to tell you that, I'm trying to do a lot of work right now that will get us closer and get us there. Sorry if that's kind of lame, willy-nilly answer, but it's kind of all I got right now, Liz. Thank you.
Hi, President Cheng. Thank you for coming. My name's Troy Paddock. I'm in the history department. As a follow-up, I appreciate that you weren't here at the beginning of the negotiations, but if you're going to be here at the end and you're going to own it, then you need to do more to change that tone. And I don't expect you to, no. I don't expect you to come out and make public statements saying the BOR is bad for this or that. That's silly and unproductive. But I do expect you to be working behind the scenes to help them remove some of the unreasonable proposals. And for all we know, you might be responsible for them dropping the 51 proposals that they've already dropped. If you have, then thank you. I would say you have more work to do because there are about 81 others that are pretty bad and pretty harmful to the university in the long term. And I think the problem here, and this is really what I wanted to talk to you about, is that the BOR does not understand universities. And what I mean by that, is just in your presentation, you talked about you want us to have innovations, to be incubators, to create things. Wonderful. What our university talks about, what the BOR has talked about, what your predecessor talked about, was creating students to be, and this is the term of art, workforce ready. That sounds like they want us to create workers and nothing else. That's a problem. You say you want us to have innovative programs. We've tried innovative programs. When I was chair of the history department, I worked with English and political science to create a program for American Studies and Civic Leadership. It went through all of the processes here. We go up to the academic subcommittee of the BOR, who has no academics on it. 3 people, they say, nah, it's frivolous. And the rationale we got from this was one of the board members said her daughter had recently graduated with an English degree, put her CV on Indeed.com, and hadn't gotten any bites. How the hell are we supposed to work with people who don't understand innovation? One last quick point. One way to avoid that kind of scene is if there is any way to streamline the process for programs so that we don't have to go through the BOR, I think you'll see a lot more activity here and everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you. So there's a lot there, so I'm trying to unpack my notes here, and I want to try to address these appropriately. Look, like I said, I'm gonna continue to try to work with our folks, with your folks, with whoever I can to try to move things in a positive direction, right? You know, none of you should see that or hear about that ever. That's all there is to it, right? If you do, that's a problem, right? So if I can do my job well, then hopefully all of us will do our jobs well and we'll get to a better place, right? So I commit to you that I will continue to do that. Look, I think there was a reason that I have been given the opportunity to serve in this role, okay? Coming from faculty ranks, having served you know, for 20 years in academia, I think I understand our world very well. You know, I think I understand the paths and the journeys that our students and our faculty and our staff and our institutions have gone through. And so it's my job to work with the BOR, to educate at times, to create context, to help broker better relationships, to help create better understanding. I don't want to denigrate the work that the administration at any campus or for the system has done over the past few years. Let's just say I'm going to take my lens, what I've done, how I've done it. If it's worked, I'm going to try to apply it. I'm going to try to scale it up. I'm going to try to do things that I think work. I don't care who's right or wrong. Some of you have heard me say this ad nauseum already. I don't care who's right or wrong. I care about what works and what doesn't work for our students, for our faculty, for our staff, and for our institutions, right? So wherever those good ideas might come from, if we can put them into use and have them benefit our people, that's all I really care about. It's what works and what doesn't work. So, and it's not to take, well, it's a little bit to take the responsibility off of the BOR. The BOR are volunteers. They're, more often than not, they are not academics. Many of them are governor appointed, many of them are legislatively appointed, and so forth. I'll just tell you that I think very highly of our board. They're very passionate, they're very committed people. They're not academics, right? And so I think it is my job to, again, to create that context, relationship, and that lens for them so that we can be in a position to educate our students and prepare them for the next realm, whatever that ends up being. Graduate school, finding a job, whatever it might be, we want to continue to be able to do that. And the BOR wants to help us do that. So I think that there's work that I have to do on that side. And that will hopefully give you all more latitude, more flexibility, more runway to create, to evolve, to innovate, and to continue to remain a strong player in the 21st century. So when it comes, you're not the first person to mention to me, you're not the first person to mention to me or to voice frustration with the process for program approval, okay? So I'll just tell you that in working with this board and trying to create as much context and as much kind of insight as possible into what and how we're doing, I would hope to streamline the process. We're not going to end up going around the BOR. That's just not how it works. But what I'll tell you is that I don't have a problem rolling the sleeves up and getting into the mix with the presidents of the institution. So when the presidents are ready to put a program forward and we've already gotten the campus approval and we've gotten my office's approval, by the time it gets to the board, I don't think we should be having certain kinds of conversations, right? I don't think we should be answering certain kinds of questions at that point. If we've done our jobs well and better than what we've done in the past, then we won't experience some of the things that you have experienced, which I understand are very frustrating and disappointing and, frankly, infuriating, because I know what it takes to create curriculum. I know what it takes to get it through the department, much less to get it through your school and then the Senate. That right there is like 4 or 5 of the circles of hell to get out of, and then you got to get to the BOR, and then you're going to get shot down sometimes for some of these reasons that, frankly, probably don't make a whole lot of sense. So I hear you loud and clear. It's something that's definitely on the radar. We're going to try to address it. So I appreciate the comments. Thank you. Real quick check. Do we have anyone online, or is it only in person? No one online? We're only in person. Okay, great. I just want to make sure we stay focused. Sir.
Yeah, I'm a real person.
Okay.
My name's Tony Rosso. I'm 34 years English department at this university. And I've seen a lot of contract proposals for my work in the AAUP. But I'm also a Blake Scholar. I publish, and I teach Orwell like you do. I was wondering if a bit of a tug of war within you when you use terms like value proposition, whether Orwell in you, the Orwell teacher in you is rebelling against such language, such corporate language. Be that as it may, I have a specific question. If you're willing to support us in removing one of the contract items that it seems to allow the Board of Regents to move full-time faculty from campus to campus. And that would basically turn us into DoorDash workers in a gig economy, which you say is one of the things you can't control or we can't control, and it's just coming our way. But we are aware of that because the 34 years I've been here, we've had DoorDash workers, which is our part-time faculty. And the fear now is you want to turn full-time faculty into DoorDash workers. And I actually read the literature by the national think tanks, and the 2 people that the Board of Regents had speaking in an emergency meeting on the 18th. I read their brochures, and they are actually talking about this kind of flexibility to move faculty around within each state around the nation. So I wondered if you could commit to us to remove that particular proposal.
Thanks, Tony. So I don't think this will be a surprise to you. I can't commit to removing this, that, or the other thing, right? I don't want to give the impression that I, as the president of the system, will sit down and redline a contract and say, okay, here we go, we're done. That's disrespectful to your negotiating team, that's disrespectful to our negotiating team, especially given the fact that I started this position after the process had already begun and had been going on for So what I will say, Tony, is that having been an adjunct faculty member, having done the shuffle, as I would call it, I realize that is not a great situation for faculty, in some ways. And then the other thing I would say is that I think that the faculty and the passion and the commitment and the fact that you've been here for 34 years, others have been here, some have been here longer, some have been here, 10, 15, 20 years or what have you, right? You've committed to this place, you've built this place, you've given your lives, you've done the work for this place. So I take that very seriously. We're going to look at everything, and again, I'm going to try to influence things in a way that I think will be most beneficial for our system, for our institutions, and for our folks. Okay? I think it's circumstantial, right? I think it can be circumstantial. I think it is a trend in higher ed. I think that there could be benefits to it. I don't know if that necessarily makes sense for our system, right? But again, I'm not sitting down, redlining, kind of perseverating over every single clause at this time, but I'm a lot deeper in this conversation now than I have been in the past. So, hearing your frustration and others, you're not the only one, hearing your frustration, your concern over particular proposals such as this, it's helpful to me to educate me on where it's coming from, and not just where we are now, but how we're kind of getting here, right, and what's behind it. Okay, so, I hope you didn't expect something more concrete where I was going to just say, yes, I'm going to cross that off the table right now. That's not going to happen, but I hope you can understand my sensibility a little better as we continue to move forward in the process.
President Cheng?
Yes.
We do have some questions from the folks that are watching virtually,
Okay.
and I'd like to share two of them with you. One is pretty lengthy. How is the CSU system faring over time with respect to the recruitment and retention of faculty, and how does Southern compare? How do we compare to UConn? In addition to these data, I think it would be very helpful to look at how we compare in every respect to UConn branch campuses, who I perceive to be a growing and direct threat to our enrollment. What could we do, et cetera, regarding your thoughts on that. And the second question that I think is particularly important here is if you could speak to the partnerships between AWS and Google. Those announcements have been focused on benefiting the community colleges. If you could speak to the impact or your thoughts on that related to the university. Thank you.
Sure. Good. Joe, who do those questions come from?
They're from a faculty member.
Okay. Who chooses to remain anonymous? I'm just kidding. It's a joke. Sorry. It's not a joke crowd, I guess.
I'm sorry, the first one is Kate Marsland from psychology.
Okay.
And the second is Lisa Lancor from computer science.
Okay, great. Okay, so I don't have that information when it comes to the retention of faculty. Again, we've got folks from the system office with me. I'm taking notes, they're taking notes. There are multiple sets of ears hearing what folks are saying and the conversation that's going on. We can dig that up, right? We can look into that and see what the kind of faculty and staff retention rates look like. I'll tell you that coming from a system, multiple systems now actually, where they've had the chance to kind of evolve and aggregate their data and create data warehouses and dashboards and that kind of thing. I think it's something that we as a younger system still need to improve on, but that is important data, so we will definitely look into that and try to get that information put together. How we compare to UConn, again, I guess we could look to that. I'm not sure what the precise value of that comparison would be, but maybe I'm just missing something right now, and we can kind of look into that more. In terms of the regional campuses, and again, this was my world, Stanford grew a lot. I think we benefited from a lot of natural assets like our location and then the fact that we were able to build a dorm. President Joe and I talked about this. When I was running that campus and we brought it up to the next level through the dorm, through programs, through different partnerships and so on and so forth. Again, I know folks don't like using this word, but the value proposition of that campus went to another level and folks recognized it, right? They saw what they wanted to see, they understood how they were going to benefit from it, and they took part in that, right? And I think the rise of that campus put a hit on the enrollment of several of our CSCU campuses. Now, ironically, I get the pleasure and the honor of serving the CSCU system, and I got to try to claw some of that back with the institutional leaders and all of the campuses. And I think that's a challenge that I relish, to be quite honest with you. So how do we compare with that? I'll tell you that Avery Point has been flat. I'll tell you that Waterbury and Hartford, even Hartford with its new campus, continues to be flat. So the only real threat, in my estimation, continues to be the Stanford campus, not just because I helped build it, but because it's actually a real thing, and because of New York and all the different things that are going on there, it continues to have a kind of attractive quality on a different level. So I do think that those are important factors. I don't think that there's anything that we can't do to mitigate some of that, and I do think that the value that we have here, you know, we can go toe-to-toe with them. I'm not worried about that. In terms of the partnerships with Amazon Web Services and Google, and you noted that in the presentation, that I do think it's one of our pillars, right? So right now, the relationship is that we have signed some kind of partnership agreement with them where we will offer the Amazon and Google curriculum through non-credit options and opportunities at all of our community college campuses. This is beneficial in terms of a kind of, again, a workforce development or reskilling, upskilling effort that we as a state agency, you know, really should be a part of. And I do think it actually adds even more value and attraction to our campuses. I also think it can, should, and will help our own students. So, you know, at the press conference for Google, ironically, one of the students who was there on the panel who was asked to speak was one of my former UConn Stanford students who had just graduated. He graduated with a computer science degree, had a really good GPA. He had internship experience with Synchrony down in Stanford, a partnership that we had cultivated through the years. Even with that, he still wasn't getting job opportunities. He wasn't even getting interviews. So he decided to take the Google certificate course. After 6 weeks, he finished the certification. He went back out on the market, and he got 5 interviews in the same week. Some of it's serendipitous. This is all anecdotal. I'm not saying this is scientific in any way, shape, or form. But I do take heart in the fact that someone that I know, that I worked with personally, who I know is a super smart, super intelligent, hardworking student, was able to benefit from that. You know, and I think that's something that we can continue to work on and cultivate together. I don't think this takes the place of what we do in a more quote-unquote traditional mode of higher education, but I do think that it is going to add to what we bring to the table for the state and for our students. I think I got all the online questions, right? And I know there's more in the room. We've got someone in the back, sir, and then there are questions up here too. Hands are raised up here when we get to that. Sir, please.
Yes, thank you for being here and for talking to us and give us the opportunity to express our opinions. I'm Rafael Hernandez from the Department of World Languages and Literatures. And first, I want to thank you for asking the question I had been asking since I came to this university. Why not us? Why not? What is missing here? We are all professional. We are all scholars. We are all excellent teachers. We offer classes that could be easily offered in other more prestigious universities. We use the same textbooks, we have the same background, etc. So why not us? And I kept asking that question again and again and again when I came here. And I kept hearing things like, well, you know, this is different. The students we get are different. We're in a different situation. We're a different kind of university. And I never understood what that meant. I'm glad to hear you say that our job is not to train workers. Yet, I hear also that we're making all these deals with other companies and we're willing to, you know, lower our standards or offer things that are going to be useful for them so they can get jobs. But still, we are a university, we're not a training school. Two very different things. Our main mission as professors is academic. It's not training people to go and get a job earning minimum wage. I don't even think we could promise them that. Mm-hmm. And if we do, we're lying to them. We cannot tell them they're going to get jobs after they take classes with us. That's not the reality. You also say that we need to meet the challenges of the 21st century, which for me means this is a globalized world, multilingual, multicultural, and at the same time, there is pressure in our own university and in our institutions to cut on classes that are not perhaps popular because they might be hard, to cut language classes, to offer less classes for students. So that is a contradiction. If we're going to educate people for the 21st century, we need to be coherent and consistent. And cutting programs and things like that is not the solution. So why not us? And when I keep hearing, well, because we're different, because we're in different circumstances, because we have different students, bottom line, what people are saying is we cannot do that with a 4-4 teaching load. How can we be innovators? How can we create new classes? How can we transform the curriculum when we have to teach 4 classes? And I repeat, 4 classes every semester. You talk about UConn, you talk about our universities. They are not teaching 4 classes every semester. That's ridiculous. It is not a possibility to ask people to be innovative and come up with new programs and meet the challenges of the 21st world, and at the same time have a contract like the one is being presented to us. We can hardly be able to teach classes at a minimum standard with the conditions that this contract is presenting to us. That is absolutely unacceptable. And if we're going to hear from you that you are supporting the idea of innovation and create new programs and think out of the box and meet the challenge of the 21st century, there has to be there for us to work with. We are professionals, we have families, we have mortgages, so we cannot say, oh, well, you are so great and you're going to help the students and this is your calling. Oh, this is wonderful, you're a great teacher, and we're not going to pay you, by the way. Or we're going to pay you less than what you were making 10 years ago. That is unacceptable. I think that it's important to recognize that education is important and that what we do, it's important, but not only at a sentimental level, but also as a professional. More than anything, I am a professional, and I should be treated as such, and I should be paid as such. So why not us? Because of the conditions in which we had been forced to work. Change those conditions, and I guarantee you that we also be examples of innovation and new programs. So thank you very much for asking that question. And thank you very much for voicing something that I think is very important for us. We are not trained in schools. That is not our job. Thank you.
You're right. Thank you, Dr. Hernandez. I appreciate that. Listen, I agree with a lot of what you just said. Okay, and I fired my ambassador years ago because that person was doing a lousy job. So what you see is what you get. I'm just going to be really honest with you. Okay, we are a state agency. We are looked to help folks get to a better life. A lot of times that means an education that helps them to get into careers and jobs that without education, they would not be able to do. So as an administrator, as an admitted bureaucrat, we have to talk about workforce development. We have to talk about how we can help reskilling and upskilling. And if you look at the surveys that are out there these days, what students are looking for in their educational experiences, the top responses to these surveys, why are you coming to a university or a college? It's to get a good job and or a better job. So it's real. I'm not saying that that's the only thing that we should be focusing on, but I will tell you that if we don't have that as part of our goal, part of our mission in public higher education in general, then we're deluding ourselves. Okay? But I'm an English faculty member. Even worse, I'm a fiction writer. I'm a creative writer, right? I'm not even like a real scholar in some people's eyes. I make stuff up for a living, maybe which is why I enjoy this job, because you get to kind of try to do different things and to create and fix and so forth. But in all seriousness, I don't see why we can't do both. And I think we have to do both. We should be trying to do both through our community colleges and through our universities. Offering a master's degree in business or in computer science or engineering, in an undergraduate in digital humanities, in sustainability studies, don't tell me that's not workforce development, right? We might not like the lexicon, we might not like the rhetoric, we might not like some of the terminology. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, come to our institution, learn, get a great academic experience, dovetail that academic experience into experiential learning, internships, co-ops, right? Places where you can flex your academic muscles in the workplace, right? Wherever that is that you want to go, and then ultimately be able to move on, and again, go to grad school, get a good job, whatever it might be. Take a great Connecticut student, educate them here in Connecticut, get them a job in Connecticut, and keep them in Connecticut to raise their lives. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Okay, so I think we might be saying the same thing, we might not. But I don't mind kind of having this type of back and forth. You said some other stuff, Dr. Hernandez, that I want to address because I think it's important, okay? When I hear you speak, and I appreciate the passion, I appreciate the candor, I hear you saying, we've been disrespected, right? We're being devalued, we're being disrespected, we're being treated unprofessionally. And, that's painful to me because I don't want any of us to feel that way. And unfortunately, that is the place where we are now. We have to continue to work our way out of that. I think you also point at a very, an important kind of juxtaposition here, which is how do we ultimately have the space, the time, the capacity, the bandwidth to create, to innovate, to evolve when you are tasked with, a high teaching load. So I don't disagree with you with that. We got to figure that out. I don't have an answer for you right now. Again, like I said, I'm not going to write a proposal right here that's going to go into the contract, but I do think that that's something that, my office, the system office, and our bargaining units can and should be talking about and working on together. Because I've lived that life, I've taught the high teaching load, I've gone through all that, so, I understand where you're coming from with that. I just want to look at my notes and make sure I'm not missing anything else. When it comes to the 21st century, global, multilingual, multicultural, and so forth, I don't know anything about classes that are being cut here on the campus. You'd have to talk to your department, department heads or your deans and provost's office and so on and so forth. Again, I think it's something that, I would agree with you on. We should be encouraging. Interdisciplinary work. We should be encouraging as much kind of cross-disciplinary work as we can, because I do think that that's part of the, the innovation and the growth that we can see in our curriculum and in our pedagogy, and ultimately within modalities as well, because I do think that more modalities are going to help serve more people. So I don't want to keep rambling on. Dr. Hernandez, you make a lot of really good points. I appreciate them. We might agree on a lot of them. We might disagree on a few of them. But I appreciate the back and forth. I don't know who's got the mic, so okay.
Hi.
Okay, boss said two more
this
questions.
Hi, my name is Megan Barboza. I'm in the biology department. I just wanted to bring your attention to something you may or may not know about the contract and an inequality that's been in it forever. You may also know there's a law in Connecticut that you cannot separate a puppy from its mother if it's less than 8 weeks old. But our current contract has no maternity leave. Faculty have come up with a very innovative way to provide family and medical and maternity leave. And I don't think it's come up in discussions, and it would cost very little if no money. And so I would just encourage you to discuss this with the Board of Regents and be aware of the fact that we have no maternity leave. We should. And thank you.
Yeah. I would actually just add to that, Megan. I would say something. This is something that we can look at, whether it's this contract or potentially beyond. It's parental leave, right? Like I remember benefiting from parental leave when I was at CUNY. Those whatever. Yeah, and we know what happens when your kid gets sick. It upends your whole world. I get it. Okay. I'll look into this. I'll see what's going on. But I benefited from parental leave, so let's just say I'm a fan, but I guess, this is something that we do have to figure out and negotiate, okay? Thank you for that. I think we had time for a couple more. I don't know who's got the mic. We've got a mic over there. Hi.
So I'm Meredith Sinclair. I'm from the English department, and I'm also the chair of our undergraduate curriculum forum here. And I have, I think, a pretty simple question. You mentioned early on in your presentation, one of our challenges is relations between administration and faculty. And I would argue, and I think many in this room would, that a lot of that comes out of the BOR's proposals, which, to quote Tony, want to turn us into DoorDash workers. So I'm curious what your understanding of shared governance is, and how you understand the role of faculty in shaping the future of our universities.
Sure. Look, I share more DNA with all of you than I think any of you would probably want to admit, okay? So I get it, right? Shared governance is really important. Curriculum should be created and developed and approved and, really generated by the faculty, right? I firmly believe that. And so when I say we need you, we're not going to be able to do these things. Now, granted, Dr. Hernandez pointed out a lot of obstacles and challenges to having a clearer, stronger path to that. But through shared governance, I firmly believe in the faculty, quote unquote, owning the curriculum and the pedagogy, okay? I also think that shared governance means shared leadership, right? So without shared leadership, we cannot do things that are really going to address the big problems that we have right now. We're not going to be able to figure out what our suite of academic programs for all of our institutions can and should be. You're going to do that. We have to try to figure out ways to communicate what's going on from the administrative level, from the state and government level, and translate that into what do we do as academic institutions of higher education that are serving students, right? Because we don't want to become the producers of DoorDash workers with our students, nor do we necessarily want our faculty and our staff to feel that way either, okay? But shared governance is shared leadership, and shared leadership is shared responsibility and accountability. So in my estimation, and I'll tell you, I put my money where my mouth is. When I was a department chair, I went out on the road with an admissions director, and I tried to recruit folks. I've always been on the front line with administrators, especially when I was in the faculty, to try to work with them to figure out solutions. Okay, so that to me is what shared governance is. It's not about this side says this, that side says that, and then we don't agree, and then we just kind of stop talking to each other. Unfortunately, and I'm not talking about here only, I'm talking about like the zeitgeist these days. Right? It's like if we don't agree, we have to be enemies. How the hell are we ever going to make progress together if that's how we go about things? And we got to own that on the system office side, the BOR side. We got to own that. Sure, I will own that. But I think we all have to own that to some degree. So some might agree with me, some might not. But to me, shared governance, especially when it comes to faculty, curriculum, pedagogy, innovation, value of those programs, the expertise. Can we as institutions, can we as administrators, can we as a system office help to connect that and elevate that even more? But then ultimately, how do we go about creating solutions together? And how do we go about leading together and then sharing the responsibility and accountability together? Because I don't think we do that enough. Is this the last one, boss? Okay.
Hi, so my name's Kathleen Skozin. I'm in the anthropology department. Been here 23 years. It's my 4th contract negotiations. We've opened and given back to the state because of financial hardship up in Hartford, every single contract. I don't think they're having financial hardship up there now. And I don't bring this up because I think salary should be the foremost issue for faculty. I think it's pretty clear, based on our questions, it's not. but it does go to an issue about faculty retention, which we don't hear enough about. And the other thing it goes to is our competition with UConn. And I have an anecdote for you. I came from San Diego State as an undergrad. I was accepted at UC San Diego, and San Diego State offered a better program. That's why I went. I got a full funding through graduate school. It was an excellent education. I left Ithaca College to come here after a small stint at City College, and because I could start an anthropology program here, and I think we've built, on a very skeleton crew, an excellent program. My niece just transferred from Southern to UConn, and she was a poli-sci French major, double major. And I had Thanksgiving with her and asked her how it was going at UConn and how she found the classes. And she said, I don't find the faculty any better at all. Indeed, the classes were probably better at Southern. We have a branding issue. We have an issue with faculty retention. And those are related, I would argue, to some degree to the fact that, in effect, this proposal on the table wants us to go back to 2017 wages, with keeping 2019 wages on the table. Those are draconian cuts. How do you expect to get innovative, cutting-edge faculty to come to the CSU system and stay with this kind of BOR proposals on the table? And I would just say one other thing that I've noticed over these years. I really respect the leadership at my institution. I've respected it over these years. It has grown, and their salaries have grown, and the faculty salaries have not kept up with that. The other thing that has grown exponentially is the cost of the CSU system. I went to San Diego State, it was $50 a semester. It was the same at CSU at that point. And we cannot compete with the branding issue, with the cost issue, and keep our faculty. I'm on my way out the door. There's a lot of young, bright faculty that I look at. Just had a conversation with a new one today and think, please stay, right? I think those are some of the challenges. You talk a really good game, but these are the issues that, you've got to talk that game to the Board of Regents on our behalf.
Yep. Again, Kathleen, you say a lot that I really agree with. Where did Kathleen go? There she is, sorry. You're all wearing red, so it's like a blur. Okay. You said a lot of really important things, right? And I agree with a great deal of what you said. Listen, if we're not keeping our talent, that's a huge problem. I absolutely agree with you that we have I hate to use these kinds of terms, but we have a branding and marketing probably challenge ahead of us, right? UConn casts a big shadow. Listen, I got to walk around like a real arrogant son of a gun in Fairfield County for 5+ years, selling that campus, because you've got the UConn brand and the mythology of that coupled with other assets, right? So to me, that's a challenge. I don't necessarily compare us to UConn, though, right? If a kid wants to go to UConn, they're going to go to UConn if they can get in, right? And so it's incumbent upon us to, again, control what we can control. What is it that we put forward to our prospective students that says, you should come here, you belong here, we're going to do right by you, right? This is what's going to happen in the classroom. This is what's going to happen in terms of your outside of the classroom development, your experience. This is how we're going to connect all the dots with you and for you, help you grow, be a better person, but also help you be a really productive citizen outside in the society and the community, right? We can do that, right? So it goes back to that why not us theme, right? That attitude. We can do that, but there are a lot of things that will get in the way and make us feel bad, right? And those are real things. We have to get through this contract. We have to get through these negotiations. We have to get to a better place so that we can start to work on that. I'm looking at my notes because I don't want to lose some of the things that you said. Regarding the contract, like I said, would I have started the negotiations the way they started? Probably not, but it is what it is. You start a negotiation at very polarized ends, right? You hope to kind of work into the middle. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't work. Okay? Well, like I said, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. I understand all the different... Understood. I hear, I hear everything you're saying. I hear everything you're saying, okay? So, have you read the contract? Sure. Have you read both sets of proposals? Yes, I have. How can we become the best college based on the DOR contract? How can we become the best college based on it? Good point. So, I will tell you that, again, I want us to have a contract that treats you all fairly, that is sustainable. Okay? I cannot change what has transpired already. I can try to impact and influence what is happening now and into the future to try to get us to a better place. Okay? Like I said, it didn't start with me, but it will end with me for this contract. And so I will have responsibility for what happens. Okay? And so, like I said, you're not going to see the work that I do. You know, I appreciate the frustration. I understand the frustration when folks, you know, not just you, say things like, well, go do something about it, right? I'm going to try. I'm going to work hard on that. I'm going to try. At the same time, you know, as we're working through this, I would also ask that we continue to do our best to partner. And I know it's hard right now because we don't feel like partners, and maybe we won't for a while, but I do think we have to try to get there. Whether we like it or not, folks, we're colleagues. And AUP is not going anywhere. And the administration of Southern is not going anywhere. And the system office is not going, I'm still speaking. We're not, I'm still speaking. So what I would like, well, I was asked to come to campus. I actually wanted to come to campus. And I think this is a town hall meeting where folks ask me questions, and then I respond to them. So I'm trying to be respectful and respond to the question while you're interrupting me. So I don't know if you think that's appropriate and how you want to spend your first time interacting with the president of the system. If you do, that's fine. But I'm still speaking. No, I'm still, well, you might as well because I've already lost my train of thought. So why don't you go ahead? What's your name? What's your... Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, it's under your control. The lack of professionalism, the lack of respect that we have been shown in these negotiations in the room is a huge part of the problem. And it's a sign of the way that we can interpret what you're doing, right? We know you from your actions, and they've not been good.
What, so what's your name again?
My name is
Ken?
Ken.
So what have I done, Ken? What are my actions that are not good?
Failed to implement, failed to oversee the negotiations by your staff in a way that's respectful to us.
So how do you know that?
From our union members, who I trust.
Okay. So what I would tell you in response to that is, you don't know anything about what I do. And I would invite you, actually, if you would ever choose to take on such a challenge, like President Joe invites ACE fellows to join him. Come join me for a month.
For a month?
Sure. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. No, because you know what, Ken? I'm not going to lie to you. I feel like you're not being particularly professional or respectful with me as an individual and as a leader of the system. Your frustration, I hear you. I feel you. I was at CUNY where we didn't have a contract for 6 years. I was on the tenure track, and we didn't have a contract for 6 years. So you think I don't understand what you're going through? You're wrong. Okay? That's number one. Number two, I'll ask you a question now. What department are you in again? So how's your enrollment doing in anthropology?
Our enrollment is doing fine,
Mm-hmm.
and we do a great service to this university. You should know.
Yes.
Our teaching is excellent, our programs are excellent, our reputation is excellent.
Great.
We bring a lot to this university.
Excellent. So, and my question is not to denigrate anthropology. I have no problem with anthropology here or at any other institution, right? But I'm going to ask you a question now. So, if I asked you and I said, you know, we would like to see adjustments or changes, right? Within the field, we see that there's a need to evolve or there's a need to add a new concentration or what have you. And I said, well, you need to do that. You need to do that now. You need to do that fast. How quickly could you do that? Through your processes for curriculum change, things that you as faculty control, as departments control, how quickly could you affect change? Just answer the question. How quickly could you affect change? You control certain things. I'm saying to you, if you and your department want to make changes, how quickly could you make change?
I thought that you were coming here in some part to listen, and if I've offended you in some way personally.
I have been listening.
Great. So, and you're questioning me about how I'm going to do my particular job.
I am asking you, how quickly could you affect change in your arena? Because you're asking me, I'll tell you where the question is going. You're saying to make changes right now. You don't like certain things about how the negotiations have gone. I've been on the job for a little over 4 months, listening, trying to understand, talking to people, figuring out not just where we are, but how we got here. And now you're telling me that I haven't done a good job and that we need to make changes right now. So what I'm asking you as a juxtaposition is, you as an academic, as a part of a department, within your responsibilities, if you were asked to make certain changes by someone who didn't fully understand the world and all the parameters and all the details and nuance, someone said, go make those changes, how quickly could you make them?
Look, if we spoke to our students or to our colleagues the way that your colleagues speak to us, we would have serious repercussions, okay? This is a problem of respect. It is a problem of respect for the people that work in this university, who make this university, who day in, day out do the work.
Mm-hmm.
We can't walk into our classroom and say to students, hey, what's the value proposition today? I've got a plan for our value proposition. We have to teach.
I understand that.
Do actual work. And that's founded on respect we have for each other, we have for our students. The system office does not seem to be founded on that. The Board of Regents does not seem to be founded on that. It seems to be founded on a lack of respect, a desire to denigrate us, a desire to put us down. That is tiring. It is wearing. It is enough. It has to change. And we shouldn't stand for it.
Ken, I understand. This is my 15th campus visit. Okay? This is my 15th campus visit. So I have heard on every single campus, community colleges and CSUs, I have heard frustration, I have heard anger, I have heard disappointment, and it breaks my heart. And you might think I'm full of shit, and that's fine, but it breaks my heart. I didn't come into this job or get into this type of work to try to burn anything down. I didn't get into this type of work as a leader, and when I say leader, it's actually a servant. I serve all of you. I work for you. I represent you. I have walked this path with you, and frankly, before some of you. So I know what you're talking about. Okay, I'm sorry I'm losing my cool a little bit here. I don't like being interrupted. I do think that's rude. I have been listening. I do understand what you're saying. I do understand that disappointment, and I also understand that feeling of disrespect. And as I said to previous questions, I am working on things. I don't know what else you expect from me right now. I am working on things. I understand that, Ken. Okay? I'm trying to demonstrate that there's a level of attention, respect, and care coming from me because, frankly, you know, I don't need to get into the, you know, to throw hands with you, right? I could easily ignore you. I could blow you off. I'm not going to do that because I respect you.
That sounds like a threat.
It's not a threat. What are you talking about?
I don't know what throw hands means, but
It's a metaphor. It means we scrap a little bit. It means we get into it a little bit, right? I'm sorry if it's certainly not meant to be a. Well, Ken, I apologize. Okay, I didn't mean to offend you. I certainly did not mean to you know, imply that there is any threat. What I'm trying to say to you, Ken, is that I respect you enough to hear you, to respond to you. I am listening. And again, I ask you the juxtaposition question, which is, you're asking me to make change right here, right now, right away. I've been on the job for less than 6 months. I'm listening, I'm learning, I'm trying to figure things out, and I'm trying to effect change as rapidly as I can. That is what I'm telling you. Boss, we done?
You're the boss, but yes.
No, I'm the master of none. I think this gentleman has been waiting very patiently. If we don't mind, can we just squeeze one more in?
settled contract of over 40 years, first of all. You're not going to dismantle the whole structure that was built up over that time unless you can demonstrate a catastrophe. I've studied this thing nationally for years. You have to show that very survival of the institution is at stake to make those kinds of changes. Instead, what we have in Hartford is so much money that some people in the legislature are talking about tax cuts, okay? Secondly, the negotiation of wages has already been largely usurped, I think. They can ask for 2017 wages, they can ask for anything else. But right now, you know there are negotiations going on between Dan Livingston and the people at OPM, approved by the governor, that will create a model of salary for all CBAC units, state employee bargaining agent units. I've been around enough to sit there and listen to those people talking. These are the best labor lawyers probably in the eastern United States. They're not going to lose those issues. The sad thing about the Board of Trustees is that they're stupid. They're pushing issues they can't win, and they know they can't. This isn't Texas. It's not Mississippi. It's Connecticut. You're not going to win. You're not going to find any arbitrator that's going to side with them. The real issue should be, they should be concerned about what's going to happen when everybody retires. How do you fill departments with qualified people if you lose 6 out of 8 or 6 out of 10 people? They're not even dealing with the issues. You sound like you are, and you sound like you're grounded. But I'm telling you, I've been through this before. That is the most dysfunctional system of governance that we have now that you could ever imagine. They hire a new chancellor who goes to Boston and spends $1.3 million on a study. And he's supposed to know what to do. That's why he got hired. They hire somebody to run the system. He's going to do it from home in Minnesota. Look at the history of what they've done. The best message you can give those people is to seriously consider their position. Look where they are. Look what they've done. And look what's likely to happen. And I'll tell you one last thing. There are almost about 80,000 state employees that use people on contracts and privately retired. There's over 100,000 retirees. I'm the president of the CSCU retirees now, Council 400. You think all those people are going to sit there and take a contract that's going to move us back to 2017 to satisfy somebody's arrogance or somebody's anger in the Board of Trustees? It's not going to happen. They're compromising the university and they're alienating the relationship between all of us here by doing things that are foolish and impossible. Thank you very much.
So look, I appreciate the comments. I appreciate everyone's comments. Okay, I appreciate everyone's input. I think sometimes we got to be in the room, and I'm, I'm really more talking about myself now. You got to be able to sit in the room and deal with the conflict, deal with the tension. I think this is how we end up figuring out ways to bridge the gaps, ultimately come to an understanding of each other, and try to get the work done, okay? I'm going to tell you that I will do the best that I can using my body of work as a professor, as an academic administrator, and now as a system, person, system leader. I'm going to do the best that I can to get us to that better place. I understand why you're frustrated. I understand why you're angry. I've heard it from you. I've heard it from multiple campuses. I get it. You're either going to, either I'm going to earn your trust or I'm not, right? I'm going to try. Either I'm going to earn your trust or I'm not. I'm going to try to move things in a better direction, knowing that there are a lot of different details, pieces, nuances that create all of this. Okay, so, as tense as certain conversations like this will become, I think they're necessary. And I think that, if we can figure out a way to communicate, coordinate better, and ultimately have that better relationship, then we'll be able to do that work together. So that's my commitment to you. I'm always going to be at the table for these conversations. Good, bad, or ugly, I will be at the table for these kinds of conversations. I want to hear from you. I want to work with you. All I ask is that you give me a chance, you give us a chance to try to make it better, and either we're going to get there together or we're not, but I really do believe that we have what it takes to get there together. So, folks, we ran over time, but that's okay with me. I appreciate everyone's time today. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
I'd like to thank President Cheng. And President Cheng, I want to say that I'm really proud of the fact that there is a sea of red shirts today, and the messaging that you have sent to President Cheng and the passion by which you've done that, I think is inspiring, quite frankly. And I think, President Cheng, it's important for you to know that the faculty here, as well as the staff and the other folks you'll have an opportunity to meet today, they care. They work their butts off, and they care about our institution and our students, and I'm proud of that fact. And so I do want a special thank you, not just to all of you who came today, but to the faculty leadership, to Deb and to Carrie. I appreciate and value our partnerships, and sometimes we agree and sometimes we don't, but that's okay. I appreciate the time that we spend together and the conversations that we engage in, and most of the time we like one another, so that's not a bad thing either. So I'm grateful for that. So I guess I just want folks here to know that I value you, I respect you, and I thank you for the work that you are doing. And more importantly, I want you to know that we do care about you just as much as we all care about our students and our institutions. So good luck at your rally today. And you see President Cheng's email up there. I have a feeling you're going to get lots of questions and comments. My email is actually easier than that. It's joe@southernct.edu. So you are more than welcome to email me as well, and I'm always happy to meet with folks. President Cheng, thank you again. Thank you all very much. Good luck this afternoon.